Vance says violence will be met with violence. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has said its forces will respond more extensively if there's any repeated aggression.
End conflict on all fronts and open the Strait of Hormuz. However, this latest escalation shows the ceasefire is fragile and being tested on both sides. The United States says its aircraft struck Iranian storage facilities and a coastal radar site in response to a drone hitting a commercial cargo ship travelling along the Omani coast in the Strait. While the damage was limited and the ship was able to continue its journey, U.S. Central Command described it as an unwarranted act of aggression by Iranian forces and said its military remained present to ensure the agreement was obeyed. In a post on social media, the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance, said Iran could pick up the phone if it had a disagreement on how the memorandum was being applied. Iran's state media is reporting that the Revolutionary Guard repelled the American attack on Sirik Island.
Earlier in Washington, Israel and Lebanon signed a framework agreement which had been brokered by the United States after 5 rounds of negotiations. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it would begin to put in place a basis for peace. Lebanon's president said it was a first step to restoring sovereignty. But it comes as limited fighting has continued between Israeli forces and the Iran-backed armed group Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. More from our Global Affairs correspondent Sebastian Usher.
The full details of the agreement have not been announced, though there are reports that it again involves Israeli forces pulling out of some areas of southern Lebanon. Diplomatically, the fact that some kind of an agreement has been signed is a step forward, but the situation on the ground in Lebanon has shown little sign of shifting, despite several ceasefires. Both the Israeli military and Hezbollah are still carrying out attacks on each other, though with reduced intensity for now. Iran has linked the war in Lebanon to its ceasefire deal with the U.S., prompting President Trump to put pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to rein in the Israeli offensive. But Mr. Netanyahu has already restated his position, which is shared by his political opponents, that the IDF won't withdraw until Hezbollah disarms. Meloni's government has been increasingly angry at what it sees as Tehran's interference in its affairs through its proxy, but its influence beyond the talks in Washington remains limited.
There are fears that the number of people killed in the 2 powerful earthquakes in Venezuela on Wednesday will rise significantly as a desperate search for survivors continues. More than 900 people are now confirmed to have died, but many more are still missing, with the United Nations humanitarian chief putting that figure at more than 50,000. One of the worst hit areas is the northern port city of La Guaira, where satellite images show many high-rise buildings have been flattened. Carolina Lopez is one of those searching for missing relatives.
The only thing I can say is that I have my heart in my hands and I don't know what to do. That's the only thing I can say. I ask God for everything. There, where you see that destruction, nothing. I don't know where he is.
There have been some moments of relief, such as this rescue of a woman pulled alive from the rubble earlier today. The BBC's Vanessa Silva has been in La Guaira.
The level of devastation has no words to explain what we have seen. In this area of this coastal town of Venezuela, there's so many destructions. This building at my back is just completely lining to one side. It's about to collapse, and there is so many places, and you can see people struggling with their own hands, trying to remove the rubble, the concrete, in the searching of the loved ones, but it's a lot of work that is needed. The health, international rescue teams are arriving to Venezuela, but still it's not enough. It still is not deployed in all the places that we are seeing today. We literally see the floor open, the earth break in this area of La Guaira.
Teams from around the world are arriving in Venezuela to assist the relief effort, with tons of aid supplies also being delivered. The UK government says it has sent an RAF plane carrying British search and rescue teams to the country and will provide £2 million of emergency humanitarian funding. More from our World News correspondent Joe Inwood.
Working by torchlight, rescue teams in Caracas use angle grinders and their bare hands to search through the wreckage of collapsed buildings. Every now and again they fall silent to see if they can hear anyone knocking or crying for help. Then a shout goes up. There has been an aftershock and they move to safety. This was how much of the first 36 hours of the rescue operation was carried out. Local people working by hand. That spirit was praised by the acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, when she spoke to the nation a few hours ago.
Lo que está expresando es el gran corazón de nuestro pueblo.
This demonstrates the great heart of our people and their solidarity. No one has hesitated to go out into the streets to lend a hand to their Venezuelan brother or sister. And a very special recognition goes to our rescuers, those arriving from all over the country to join this commendable task of rescuing people alive from collapsed buildings and homes.
But this country, which has long suffered from poor governance and US sanctions, needs help to cope with a disaster of this scale. Teams from all over the world have flown into Venezuela, with many heading for the worst affected area in this disaster, the northern city of La Guaira. The UN says more than 1,000 rescue workers have arrived, along with 6 teams of specially trained dogs. Nicola Puchel from the International Search and Rescue Dog Organization says they will save lives.
There is always hope to find people alive. So as we know from past events, there have been people found after several days, and I think this is also possible in this event, and we are very hopeful to find a lot of people and can help families to bring back people they are missing.
Today, once again, the number of confirmed dead rose sharply, but many more are still missing. Even as a major international rescue effort gets underway, few doubt the true scale of this tragedy is only just beginning to emerge.
A new record high temperature for June was set in the UK for the 3rd day in a row as heatwave conditions continue to affect parts of the country. The Met Office says a temperature of 37.3 Celsius was recorded at Santon Downham in Suffolk, topping the previous high of 36.7 Celsius in Somerset yesterday. Health leaders have warned that the unprecedented heat is having an impact on NHS services, as our health reporter Catherine Burns explains.
When you think about NHS staff going above and beyond in a heatwave, it's not just doctors and nurses. At St Mary's Hospital in London, the estates team have been taking turns doing shifts on the roof, day and night, hosing down the rooftop chillers with cold water just to keep the air conditioning on inside.
Essentially, keeping it continually doused with water is the only way that we can keep it cool enough in order to be able to keep it running.
That's Ian Bateman, the Chief Operating Officer at Imperial College Healthcare. He says staff and patients have been brilliant, but it's not been easy.
Inside the hospital, it's warm. We're doing our very best. We've got additional chiller units in and fans everywhere that we could possibly put them, but unfortunately it's still uncomfortable. We're keeping our temperatures under constant review and wherever possible moving staff and patients around to try and keep them as comfortable as possible. But I think it's probably fair to say it's pushed our buildings and it's pushed our staff to some really challenging limits at times.
Parts of this hospital date back to the 1800s, not built with climate change or air conditioning in mind. Health leaders are warning that the NHS isn't equipped for heatwaves and needs investment to cope with what is becoming an annual event. NHS staff have been telling me what it's like for them. One nurse said her ward was like a wall of heat and called it intolerable. A midwife describes mums and new babies struggling to cope with temperatures over 30 degrees in a postnatal ward. And an A&E doctor said the heating was still on in some parts of their hospital. They said staff were irritable and some patients were abusive. Amy Tompkins is a GP in Greater Manchester.
Like so many others, our practice is converted residential rather than purpose-built, and general practice has limited resources to be able to cool the environment. We have one air conditioning unit in reception, So several of the doctors have been taking regular breaks to go and stand out there throughout their clinics.
NHS England said its website pages on heat exhaustion have had more than 120,000 hits in the last 5 days. It says services are using well-tested plans to keep staff and patients safe, but is asking the public to use their common sense about being out in the heat and staying hydrated.
The German Weather Service has said the country has hit its highest ever temperature on record at 41.3 Celsius. As large parts of Europe swelter under similar conditions to the UK, our correspondent Anna Holligan sent this report from the Dutch seaside resort of Kijkduin.
On golden sand, stretching across the North Sea, toddlers splash in the waves and families seek relief in the sea breeze. Elsewhere, escaping the heat is far more difficult. The electronic music festival DEFCON 1 in the Netherlands was ended prematurely. At midnight, visitors were asked to leave as a code red weather warning took effect. Fans were gutted.
I feel sorry for the people that have come really far. Some people have travelled literally from the other side of the world for like a once-in-a-lifetime experience, so I feel gutted for them. But I understand as well because it's so hot.
Organisers said they simply couldn't take the risk.
We were in the tent yesterday and you couldn't even dance. Everyone's pouring with sweat, everyone's exhausted. You couldn't do it, and that was 31 degrees, so 37 today. Yeah, it's unbearable.
Across the continent, the heat is having devastating consequences. In France, a toddler died after being rescued from a car. The Pride March, scheduled to take place in Paris this weekend, has been postponed, while officials in Belgium cancelled a reenactment of Napoleon's defeat at the Battle of Waterloo. The World Weather Attribution Group of scientists said the record-breaking heat gripping Europe is unmistakably linked to climate change, and such temperatures would have been virtually impossible 50 years ago.
President Trump's former National Security Advisor John Bolton has pleaded guilty to mishandling classified information in a federal court. Mr. Bolton, who's become a fierce critic of Mr. Trump, made his admission as part of a deal which could see him go to prison for up to 5 years. More from our North America editor, Sarah Smith.
John Bolton amassed various amounts of national defence information in the notes he took when he was researching his 2020 memoir, The Room Where It Happened. He then used a personal email account and a messaging app to share that information with 2 members of his family who did not have security clearances. His email account was later accessed by a hacker allegedly linked to Iran. Under the plea agreement he struck, he will serve no more than 5 years in jail and will have to pay a fine of over $2 million. A former top advisor to President Trump, Mr. Bolton has become one of his most outspoken critics. When he was first charged, he sought to portray the investigation as part of President Trump's push to use the justice system to target his political enemies. Today, he admitted the charges and said he was sorry for it. His lawyer compared the case to the 2023 indictment of Donald Trump for mishandling secret documents he kept at Mar-a-Lago. The judge overseeing that case dismissed those charges before it went to trial.
President Trump has threatened to impose a 100% import tariff against any country that targets US firms with a digital services tax, including the UK. The EU has vowed to respond swiftly and decisively if Mr. Trump carries out his threat. The Russian-controlled authorities in Crimea have declared a state of emergency after Ukrainian attacks disrupted fuel supplies. Moscow says the move is designed to keep essential services running. President Zelensky of Ukraine has announced what he calls a 40-day influence campaign aimed at forcing Russia to negotiate. Our Eastern Europe correspondent Sarah Rainsford sent this report from Lviv.
First, there was fuel rationing and power cuts. Now there's a state of emergency in Crimea as Ukraine steps up its drone attacks on the peninsula. After making this announcement, the Russian-appointed governor, Sergei Aksyonov, had to reassure residents it wouldn't mean restrictions on their movements or a curfew. He said it was about cutting bureaucracy to take rapid decisions. But Ukraine is focusing its military strikes on and around Crimea like never before, and that's having a major impact. On social media, people are posting videos of shopping centres with no power and long queues of cars towards the main bridge as people head for the Russian mainland. Even children's summer camps have been suspended for safety. Moscow's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014 was hugely popular in Russia and a big ratings boost for Vladimir Putin. But for Ukraine, it was the first act of aggression in what later became an all-out invasion. So this intensified military campaign against the stolen jewel in President Putin's crown is highly symbolic in itself. But it is also part of a wider push to increase pressure on the Kremlin and to force Vladimir Putin into peace talks before Russia gets better at intercepting the drones.
Sir Keir Starmer has declined to sack the Immigration Minister Mike Tapp, despite being asked to do so by the Home Secretary. Shabana Mahmood argues Mr Tapp has broken collective responsibility and breached the ministerial code by writing a newspaper article without consulting her first. Our political correspondent Damien Grammaticus is following developments.
Sir Keir Starmer's intervention is a sharp rebuff to his Home Secretary. Downing Street said it was not for any individual Secretary of State, but for the Prime Minister alone to decide if someone had broken the ministerial code. Mr Tapp, the Immigration Minister working under Shabana Mahmood, had written an article about her signature policy to make many who come to the UK wait longer before they can apply for permanent residency. He said, to be fair, it should not apply retrospectively to those already here on care worker visas. He had not cleared the article with her. The spat highlights the fractured relationships in Sir Keir's government. Mr Tapp has been a staunch defender of the Prime Minister. Ms Mahmood, who's been effectively rebuked, was one of the cabinet ministers who recently told Sir Keir he should step down.
The Green Party has been forced to return a donation which was made by its leader, Zach Polanski, after it was deemed to be impermissible. Mr Polanski gave just over £1,500 to the London branch of his party last September, but wasn't on the electoral register at the time. His party put that down to personal security concerns. Here's our political correspondent, Harry Farley.
Zach Polanski gave his party £1,539 shortly after he took over in September last year. But at the time, Mr Polanski was not on the electoral register, meaning legally the donation was impermissible. The explanation from his party that he wasn't registered because of security concerns comes as Mr Polanski is understood to be in discussion with the Home Office and police about his protection. Because the donation was unlawful, it should have been returned within 30 days. But it wasn't returned until the 10th of June this year. Party spokesperson said this donation was made to the London Green Party. When the issue was brought to the National Party's attention, the donation was returned. The Electoral Commission said it was considering the matter and so could not comment, but that it had not launched an investigation.
The court has lifted reporting restrictions that prevented the media from identifying 13 men who were charged alongside a husband who's accused of conspiring with others to drug and sexually abuse his wife. The husband and 12 of the 13 other suspects are due to go on trial in Manchester later this year. Our North of England reporter Rowan Bridge listened to proceedings at Manchester Minshull Street Crown Court.
The husband in the case is in his 60s and from the Stockport area of Greater Manchester. He can't be named to protect the identity of his wife. Of the 48 offences he was charged with, he's admitted 15, including rape, but will stand trial on other allegations. They include conspiring with other people to drug and rape his wife. This morning, the judge lifted an order allowing us to report more detail of the case. 12 of the 13 co-defendants have pleaded not guilty. They're Philip Wilde, Sean Pears, Jonathan Kirk and Robert Stewart, all from Stockport. Jordan Wallace and Alan Keelan, who are both from Manchester. Mohammed Sabir of no fixed abode. Graham Brewen from Northwich in Cheshire. Richard Townsend from Rochdale. Carl Lindsay from Taunton. Daniel Rayner from Whitstable in Kent and David Graves from Ilkeston in Derbyshire. Between them, they face a range of charges, including rape and conspiracy to rape. A 13th co-defendant has pleaded guilty to 4 charges. Keith Fotheringham, who's from Dundee, has admitted, among other offences, conspiring to rape and conspiring to drug the woman at the centre of the case. Those who've pleaded not guilty to offences will go on trial in Manchester in September.
Downing Street has said it is very concerning that a US fighter pilot stationed in the UK avoided trial under English law for strangling a woman in Cambridge. Captain Jacob Wolfson was tried at an American military court by a panel of 8 male Air Force officers, despite the incident taking place while he was off duty. Our UK correspondent Daniel Sanford reports.
Sarah Steele waived her anonymity to allow the Guardian newspaper to highlight the concerns raised by her case. The Cambridge academic met Captain Jacob Wolfson on the dating app Tinder and agreed to go to see the fighter pilot at his flat in Cambridge. But there he strangled her during sex, which she said was not consensual. When she reported it, Cambridge Constabulary allowed the US military police to take the lead in the investigation. Wolfson was tried by an all-male American court-martial panel, which found him guilty of strangulation, but acquitted him of non-consensual sex. Sarah Steele told the Today programme that the panel then took into account Wolfson's military record when passing sentence.
They were raising in his mitigation how many people he'd killed, supposedly to get him a lower sentence for committing a serious violent crime against me.
Under an agreement made in 1951, members of US armed forces based in the UK will be prosecuted by the Americans for offences committed on duty or against other US personnel. Other offences can be prosecuted in the UK courts, but police forces are still required to give sympathetic consideration to requests by the US military to prosecute their own staff. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said it was very concerning that this case never reached the Crown Prosecution Service for a decision on whether it should be prosecuted under English law. The Justice Minister, Jake Richards, agreed the case raised questions that he would now look at.
There are issues around military courts, whether that is in America or indeed our own, and how that interplays with our criminal courts and our civil courts. That's always an area that we look at.
The Minister said he'd make sure there was a thorough and objective review of the case.
A former Cambridgeshire police officer has been found guilty of misconduct in public office after creating what prosecutors described as a toxic WhatsApp culture. Paul Street encouraged colleagues to bully a teenage detainee and asked for a sexual video of a female suspect. A jury at the Old Bailey convicted him on 2 counts of misconduct. He's been remanded in custody and will be sentenced next month. A van driver has been praised by police after giving a lift to an armed officer who was pursuing a man suspected of carrying out a serious assault. Our correspondent Duncan Kennedy sent this report from Margate in Kent.
Stay where you are! Stay there!
Tuesdays in Margate don't normally play out like this. Armed officers recording on body-worn cameras are running after a suspect. But it looked like the alleged culprit was hot-footing it to freedom. That is, until a passing van driver stops to pick up the officer to carry on the chase.
Running down the hill towards the viaduct.
Get back, get back.
Go, 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 go. I'm going. Go, go, go. Cheers, buddy. Follow that police officer.
In a reverse of what usually happens in the movies, where the cop commandeers the car, this van driver was in full pursuit mode, happy to help the police chasing the man suspected of carrying out a serious assault.
If you just go past him, keep going past. Keep going past. Stop here on the right. Stop. Don't move. Put your hands in your head.
The wheels of justice have rarely turned so fast. With chase over and arrest made, the officer thanks his obliging new recruit.
Cheers for your help. No problem. Glad I can be of service. Cheers, buddy. We'll get on with doing the rest of it. Thanks very much for your assistance. That was quite exhilarating. See you later. Hopefully the rest of your day is a bit calmer. Yeah. Cheers, guys. Yeah, see you later.
Kent police say the van driver, who hasn't been named, should feel proud in what's clearly a case of a good Samaritan doing his bit to drive down crime.
In cricket, on day 2 of the third and deciding test match of the series, England brought themselves back in contention against New Zealand at Trent Bridge. England took all 10 wickets for 121 runs to dismiss the tourists for a first innings total of 438. The returning captain Ben Stokes ended up with 4 wickets. In reply, England's opening batsman Ben Duckett hit an 88-ball century to leave his side 223 for 2 at the close, trailing the tourists by 215 runs with 8 wickets in hand. Radio 4 broadcast on Longwave will end in just over half an hour's time. The BBC began broadcasting on the frequency from its original transmitters in Daventry in Northamptonshire in 1925, before switching to a new transmitting station in Worcestershire. Our media correspondent David Sillito reports.
Ready for number 3. All ready. Right, let her go.
1934, the beginning of an engineering marvel.
Stand by to run up the high-tension machine.
The powerful long-wave transmitter masts at Droitwich, 213 metres high, along with 2 sister stations in Burghead and Westerglen in Scotland, ensured the BBC was a truly national service.
It is the national programme from London, radiated by the new long-wave transmitter at Droitwich.
Beginning with Eric Coates' The Merrymakers, the BBC's new Droitwich service sent out a signal that travelled far out to sea and, for decades, delivered the shipping forecast.
Dover, Thames, Humber, Heligoland, East Dogger.
And that ability to travel far? In the Second World War, the long-wave signal was a way of communicating across Europe.
These are today's main events. Germany has invaded Poland and has bombed many towns.
And even sending coded messages to the French resistance. And in more recent years,
on 198 Longwave,
allowed cricket-starved holidaymakers to follow Test Match Special from the beaches of Brittany.
And join Jonathan Agnew.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to...
But 92 years on, the masts are showing their age. The elderly technology behind the service is drifting into obsolescence. Scan along Longwave these days, and most will only hear the slightly scratchy sound.
I just wonder if there's anyone at the top of
BBC Radio 4 on 198.
actually batting for Radio 4.
Which has been warning its few remaining listeners that things are coming to an end.
This service is closing. BBC transmissions on this frequency will end on...
15 years after the announcement that investment in the service had come to an end, Arqiva, who operate the transmitters, are shutting it down next week. Which means that tonight, Radio 4 will be saying goodbye to Longwave.
Now for a look at the morning papers, and the Daily Telegraph reports that the former Cabinet Secretary Lord Case has called for Andy Burnham to be honest with the public and, if he becomes Prime Minister, call an early general election. Speaking to the paper, Lord Case adds that Mr Burnham is walking a very difficult tightrope because he had promised change but had no mandate to deliver it. According to The Times, Andy Burnham is expected to say the South is paying the price for economic failure in the North when he delivers a major speech on the economy next week. What the paper calls Mr Burnham's first big policy speech since Sir Keir Starmer's resignation is due to set out a strategy which would see Whitehall budgets slashed and money diverted to regional mayors. The Sun says that Prince Harry is to take his children to see his mother's grave for the first time during their trip to the UK next month. The visit is reportedly due to take place days after what would have been Princess Diana's 65th birthday. The headlines again. US forces have tonight hit targets near the Strait of Hormuz, saying the strikes were a response to an Iranian attack on a commercial ship in the strategically important waterway. Search and rescue efforts are ramping up in Venezuela, where 2 powerful earthquakes are confirmed to have killed more than 900 people. More than 50,000 others are feared missing. The UK has recorded its hottest ever June temperature for the 3rd day in a row. President Trump's former National Security Advisor John Bolton has pleaded guilty to mishandling classified documents. Sir Keir Starmer has declined to sack the Immigration Minister Mike Tabb, despite being asked to do so by the Home Secretary. BBC News.
With Chris Aldridge. And now with a look at that all-important weather forecast. Good morning, Ben Rich.
Hello there. For the 3rd consecutive day, Friday saw the UK provisionally breaking its UK June temperature record with a high of 37.3 Celsius at Santon Downham in Suffolk. Bournemouth in Dorset recorded 14.2 hours of sunshine, but it wasn't like that everywhere. There were some really big downpours and thunderstorms around, and at Loch Glasgarnock in the Highlands, we recorded 51.2 millimetres of rain, over 2 inches of rain in the space of 24 hours. Stornoway in the Western Isles only got to 14.8 degrees Celsius, and there is some cooler weather on the way as we head through this weekend. Probably a relief for many, but in the short term, for Saturday, the Met Office still has an amber warning of extreme heat. This covers parts of eastern and southeastern England, valid until 9 o'clock on Saturday evening, because we are still going to see some pretty high temperatures across that southeast corner as we go through the next 24 hours. Now, through the rest of the night, across England and Wales, long clear spells, a few showers clipping into the southeast of England and East Anglia. Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing more in the way of cloud, and still some showers here, especially in the north of Scotland, where there will be some further thundery downpours. Overnight temperatures staying up around 20 or 21 degrees in the southeast corner, but a little cooler and fresher further north and west. And then into Saturday, across England and Wales, a lot of dry weather, some sunny spells, areas of cloud for some western coasts where it will also be quite breezy. And then late in the afternoon, we may see some showers and thunderstorms just moving up from the English Channel into the southeast of England. Northern Ireland and Scotland will see more in the way of cloud. That cloud producing some showery rain at times, still the potential for the odd flash of lightning, the odd rumble of thunder. It will be fairly breezy. Temperatures across Northern Ireland and Scotland generally in the low 20s Celsius. England and Wales seeing highs of 25 to 32 degrees, the highest temperatures in the east, but it will turn fresher for all of us on Sunday.
Some good news, Ben. Thank you so much, Ben Rich. And now, Radio 4, we conclude our series, first broadcast in 2023, How to Spot Potential, with Kate Mason.
I'm just going to test my own potential now. I've found this website which has sample tests that might be used to assess the way I think. It's called a Cognitive Assessment Predictive Index. It sounds a bit like it's ranking my potential. Tests like this are now widely used in recruitment to find HIPOs, that is, high potential employees in the jargon. Let's have a go. Cognitive assessment sample questions. Oh no, this is difficult. Choose the word that is most nearly the opposite of commend. Comply, certify, criticise, prevail, dissuade. Oh, the most nearly the opposite. God, I didn't read the question. I feel like that's quite bad, isn't it? Commend, criticise. Show answer. The correct answer is criticise. Cool. All right, should we just assume I get them all right? Oh my goodness. This is like a verbal and pictorial reasoning thing, isn't it? It's like one of those things you did at school. Two figures above share a common feature. One of the figures below does not share the same feature. Which figure below does not share this common feature? Oh no. Oh, it's A. I can handle that. 20. Correct answer is 20. They've done some stuff about maths again. Question 7 of 7, thank God. Which of the figures below the line will replace the question mark following the sequence of figures shown? It's been a long day, potential spotters. I have absolutely no idea, but if I thought about it more carefully and wasn't on the radio, then I could probably figure it out. I'm just going to pick... Oh God, I'm too competitive. Help. It doesn't say whether I'm good or not. But basically there's a chart at the end that says if you do well on the answers, I think you're like a strong fit for the organisation, whatever the organisation would be. Should I argue with these results? Unclear. How useful are they? They just made me feel quite good. They're not giving me a hard sense of something like, say, my blood cell count. Although one of them that I've looked at does basically say if I'm good at maths or not. Which, I don't know, if I wanted to show potential as an actor or something, it probably wouldn't be that relevant. It's not... There is a scale that says, like, if this is above or below average, so I suppose that is useful. In this series, we found lots of different ways of tracing potential in sport, music, education, and in work. If you've missed them, do go back and listen by searching How to Spot Potential on BBC Sounds.
So there's phenomenal potential in the human brain, and the story of that potential is what opportunities you get. How do you get to grow your brain, develop your brain? Do you get to learn to read? Do you get to learn to speak those different languages? Do you get to learn to play a musical instrument? The potential is sort of dizzying.
Much of this is related to educational opportunities, to cultural scenarios, to how in many places in the world people are held back. But I have a sense overall that the world is not using in any way its full potential of the human brain, of the human body, etc. And that feels very sad at this point in time because we've got so many problems to solve.
In this last episode, I want to look into the future. And it's a tricky one. We seem to be at a point where big changes are happening in society that might contradict everything we've learned in this series about identifying and maximising potential. When considering human potential, we now need to ask, what is that potential for?
Nikki Garchea, chartered organisational psychologist. 20 years ago, if you asked me about potential as a psychologist, I might have talked to you about general intelligence, the capacity to be intelligent and therefore pass anything, do well, and that would be why people do well in things like the 11 plus. It's a score of general intelligence. Well, now with things like ChatGPT, it can do so much of those types of things, numerical testing, verbal reasoning testing. So if machines can do well in those activities, what does potential and what replaces that view of general intelligence? And it will be things like my capacity to analyse, my capacity to be creative, but coupled with empathy and influencing skills, things that we won't be able to solely rely on automation to deliver.
Nikki is thinking about what the growth of technology means in the workplace and how it moves the goalposts.
This year, the World Economic Forum released data in relation to the business skills that we need to have alongside automation. And they were highlighting that at least 34% of all of the organisations they'd surveyed had an element of automation in roles. And in the next 5 years, it will go up to 42%. And if we've got 42% of many roles globally in the workplace having an element of automation, then potential will start to evolve. It's really the question of, if the machine can release some potential in so many ways, what can the human do?
And what that machine realised human potential of the future might be, and how we get there, is also being considered much more widely, far beyond the world of work, across subjects as diverse as medical science, computer gaming, and space exploration.
I'm Ghislaine Boddington. I'm a reader in digital immersion at the School of Design at the University of Greenwich, and I also run the creative collective Body Data Space. At the moment, I'm looking at the augmentation of the body, potentially to support us through life, a kind of scenario where we have an ally or a companion or a co-worker working with us.
Ghislaine's investigations are part of global research, taking in both the practicalities and ethics of technological advances and thinking about how our potential could be augmented or realised in all manner of our lives through the creation of digital twins, computer-generated versions of ourselves.
The modelling of a digital human, a digital me, that would be there to work with me, to support me in different ways.
So are we thinking like a kind of like a demon in Northern Lights, where you've got a little animal companion who can talk to you about your emotions and various other things? Or are we talking about like a sort of digital slave that we can get to do things like the washing up? What sort of thing are we thinking about here?
The demon example is very good, actually, because we are talking here about something that would be with you all the time. And my concept is based on having a real-time virtual body interface that's with me from birth, grows up with me and learns about the world alongside me, advises and supports across many aspects of life, could be mental health, could be supporting your work, fitness, etc., and actually collaborates with me on my work, on my social life. So it could be an avatar, it could be robotic or holographic, or all three. There are already many examples of this in different sectors. Digital human twin modelling for the medical sector is well advanced, and in the space sector too. But also we know it more on a day-to-day level. We know it in the fitness sector and obviously in the gaming sector.
So I have a Whoop, one of those things that tells you how you slept and how your heart rate is doing. So I'm imagining some sort of extremely developed version of that that's somehow also maybe listening to my thoughts and following along with what I'm doing day to day. Is that in any way realistic? And how creepy is it?
Well, the listening to your thoughts thing, Kate, is a really great one, because I'm often in the shower going, I should do that, or it would be great to do that, or I should put that in that document. And of course you're in the shower, so you can't do anything at all. So for me, definitely the ideas and the to-do lists that come up in my head when I'm otherwise occupied and not able to be tapping into my phone would be wonderful if they were translated into those scenarios. However, that one's probably quite a way off. At the moment, it is about the aggregation of data that we do, in the main, already can collect, either through our own apps, like you were saying about sleep apps or fitness apps, or through more advanced apps that are being used by the medical sector and other sectors. I think there's also a sense of understanding now with the AI explosion that's happening into much more mass society of how helpful it would be and how it might make life a little bit less boring if there was an AI working with us to say, this email is urgent, forget this lot. Help with searching for things on your computer, help with these very basic level tasks that we all spend hours doing, hours and hours, being pretty much robots on our computers, which actually can be done now by AI.
I could basically delegate stuff to it.
Exactly that, and hopefully through that giving us more space and time to have much more original thinking time and solution creating time, which is where I think our brains are not being used to their full potential.
Sounds a bit Brave New World, but should we worry? Would those machines like us outstrip our potential? Well, science has some reassurance.
My name's Sophie Scott, and I'm a Professor of Cognitive Neuroscience at University College London. What I think of when I think of potential is human brains. And the reason why I think about human brains is they're kind of like a machine for potential. You've got 86 billion brain cells. They're what you're born with. You're born with almost all the brain cells you're ever going to have. You don't learn and change by growing new bits of your brain. You learn and change by remodeling the connections between those existing brain cells. And this is giving you a sort of a computer of extraordinary power. All computers have got a limit to how much memory they have. There's no known limit to human memory. There's no known limitation on the number of languages a human can learn to speak. The limitation is time. Human brains are unbelievably full of potential. It's also the case that there is substantial evidence for individual differences along lots of different parameters. Thinking about the language example, there's quite good evidence now that some people are really good at hearing differences in speech sounds from other languages, and other people are really good at learning to produce them, and they're not necessarily the same people. They're two different ways in which people vary. But that's only going to be found out if you have that opportunity. It's a case of both, I think, embracing and giving the potential to everybody to find out what their brains can do. And there might be something really particularly very special about your brain. Well, I hope you get the opportunity to find out about it.
Throughout this series, we've considered potential largely in young people, from spotting teenage sports stars or musicians to entering university and getting on the career ladder. But satisfyingly, Sophie says it's not all about them.
You are going to be better at learning a new language when you're a child, partly because you don't have to go out to work for a living and things like that, but also there does seem to be a sort of critical period for really getting good at speaking a new language, for example, at that age. But actually, although there's some individual variation, most people will be able to pick up a new language with time and with desire to do so throughout their whole lives. Your brain is plastic, it's flexible.
So there we have it. Human potential is boundless, not constrained by age, and, despite current concerns, unlikely to be killed off by technology. The search for potential is intertwined with what makes our lives interesting. It makes us curious and leads us to the question, what next? And while it might be an individual trait, it's also something that relies on others, those who give us a chance, see something in us, spot our potential.
How to Spot Potential was presented by Kate Mason. The producer was Julian Siddle. In a few moments here on Radio 4, the shipping forecast. This is BBC Radio 4. Now, the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 0015 on Saturday, the 27th of June, 2026. The general synopsis at 1800. Low Malin, 1008. Expected Bailey, 993 by 1800 Saturday. New High, expected German Bight, 1016 by same time. The area forecast for the next 24 hours. Viking, north of Sierra, south of Sierra. Variable 2 to 4, becoming southerly 4 or 5, occasionally 6 later. Showers and fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. 40s, Cromarty 4th. Variable 2 to 4, becoming south 4 or 5, occasionally 6 later. Showers, thundery at first with fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor at first. Tyne, Dogger. Variable 2 to 4, becoming south 4 or 5 later. Showers, thundery and Dogger, good, occasionally poor. Fisher. Variable 2 to 4, showers, thundery later with fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor later. German Bight, Humber, Thames, Dover, White, Portland. Variable 2 to 4, thundery showers, moderate or good, occasionally poor. Plymouth, south veering southwest 3 to 5, showers, good, occasionally moderate. Biscay, variable 2 to 4, becoming west 3 to 5 later, thundery showers, good, occasionally moderate. Trafalgar, west 2 to 4, veering northwest 3 to 5, showers, good. Fitzroy, Seoul, south southwest, veering west later 4 to 6, occasional rain, good, occasionally moderate. Lundy, Fastnet, south southwest 4 to 6, showers, rain later, good, occasionally moderate. Irish Sea, southerly 4 to 6, occasionally 7 and west. Showers, rain later, moderate or good, occasionally poor. Shannon, south 4 or 5, veering southwest 5 or 6, rain or showers, good, occasionally poor. Rockwall, cyclonic 4 to 6, becoming southwest 5 to 7 later, rain at times, moderate or good, occasionally poor. Malin, Hebrides, cyclonic becoming south 4 to 6, rain or showers, thundery at first, moderate or good, occasionally poor. Daly, southeast becoming cyclonic 4 to 6, occasional rain, good, occasionally poor. Fair Isle, east veering south 4 to 6, rain or showers, thundery at first with fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor at first. Faroes, east or southeast 4 to 6, rain at times, moderate or good, occasionally poor. And southeast Iceland, southerly backing easterly 4 to 6, becoming cyclonic 5 to 7 later, perhaps gale 8 later in northwest, occasional rain, moderate or good, occasionally poor. And now the weather reports from coastal stations for 2300. Tyree automatic, southeast 3. Stornoway, northeast 3, recent rain, 4 miles 1010, falling. Lerwick, northeast 3, 24 miles 1015, falling slowly. Wick automatic, east-southeast 3, recent fog, 3 miles 1014, falling more slowly. Aberdeen, northeast by east 1, slight rain, 600 meters 1013, falling slowly. Lucas, east-northeast 3, 4 miles 1013, now rising. Boomer, northeast by north 2, fog, 200 meters 1013, rising more slowly. Bridlington, west-northwest 2, 1013, rising more slowly. Sound Eddy light vessel automatic, southwest 6, 2 miles 1016. Greenwich light vessel automatic, south-southwest 3, 2 miles 1018. St. Catherine's Point automatic, west-northwest 1, 1018, rising slowly. Jersey, northeast 2, 16 miles 1018, now falling. Channel light vessel automatic, south by west 2, 1019. Scilly automatic, south 4, mist, 4 miles 1016, now falling. Milford Haven, south by west 3, 8 miles 1016, steady. Aberporth, south by west 4, 27 miles 1016, rising slowly. Valley, south-southwest 5, 9 miles 1015, rising slowly. Liverpool Crosby, west 3, 14 miles 1015, rising more slowly. Valentia, south by east 3, 22 miles 1010, now falling. Ronaldsway, south 5, mist, 5 miles 1013, rising slowly. Malin Head, east by south 2, 7 miles 1007, falling. And Machrihanish automatic, east-southeast 4, recent drizzle, 5 miles 1010, rising slowly. And here's the weather forecast for the inshore waters of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, valid for the following 24 hours, issued by the Met Office at 2300. The general situation: a strengthening southwesterly flow will affect northern and western waters on Saturday, while a slack and humid flow continues to affect waters elsewhere. During Sunday, a change to a westerly flow will spread fresher conditions eastwards across all parts. Cape Wrath to Rattray Head, including Orkney, east 3 to 5, occasionally 6 near Cape Wrath, veering south, occasionally 6 near Rattray Head, then becoming variable 2 to 4 later. Rain or showers, perhaps thundery at first with fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor at first. Rattray Head to Berwick-upon-Tweed, variable 2 to 4, becoming south 4 to 6, fog patches and drizzle at first, then showers, moderate or poor, occasionally very poor, becoming good. Berwick-upon-Tweed to Whitby, variable 2 to 4, becoming southeast 3 to 5, and veering south or southwest 2 to 4 later. Drizzle at first, then showers, moderate or poor, becoming good. Whitby to Gibraltar Point. Variable 1 to 3, becoming south or southeast 2 to 4, occasionally 5 later. Showers, good, occasionally moderate at first. Gibraltar Point to North Foreland. Variable becoming southerly or southeasterly later 2 to 4. Thundery showers, moderate or good, occasionally poor. North Foreland to Selzyville. Westerly 2 to 4, becoming variable 1 to 3, occasionally 4 later. Thundery showers, moderate or good, occasionally poor. Selzyville to Lyme Regis. West 2 to 4, becoming variable 1 to 3, then southwest 2 to 4 later. Showers, thundery in east, fair later, moderate or good, occasionally poor in east. Lyme Regis to Land's End, including the Isles of Scilly. Variable 2 to 4, becoming south or southwest 3 to 5. Showers later, good, occasionally moderate. Land's End to St. David's Head, including the Bristol Channel. Variable 2 to 4, becoming south or southwest 3 to 5. Occasionally 6 near Pembrokeshire. Showers later, good, occasionally moderate in west. St. David's Head to Great Orme Head, including St. George's Channel. South 3 to 5, veering southwest 4 to 6. Showers, rain later, moderate or good. Great Orme Head to the Mull of Galloway. Variable 2 to 4 at first in Liverpool Bay, otherwise southerly or southwesterly 4 or 5, occasionally 6 in north. Showers, rain later, moderate or good, occasionally poor at first in north. Isle of Man. Southerly or southwesterly 4 to 6, occasionally 7 later in west. Fog patches at first, rain later, moderate or good, occasionally very poor at first. Loch Foyle to Carlingford Loch. Southerly or southeasterly 4 to 6, occasionally 7 in east. Showers, rain later, good, occasionally poor. Mull of Galloway to Mull of Kintyre, including the Firth of Clyde and North Channel. Southerly or southeasterly 4 to 6, occasionally 7 in North Channel. Showers, rain later, good, occasionally poor. Mull of Kintyre to Ardnamurchan Point. South or southeast 4 to 6. Showers, rain later, moderate or good, occasionally poor later. Ardnamurchan Point to Cape Wrath. East or southeast 3 to 5, occasionally 6 near Cape Wrath. Veering south or southwest 4 to 6. Rain or showers, thundery at first, moderate or good, occasionally poor. And Shetland Isles, east 3 or 4, veering south or southeast 4 or 5, occasional rain and fog patches, showers later, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. And that completes the shipping forecast. Well, before we leave you tonight, I just wanted to take a moment to mark the end of an era. For almost a century, the Longwave transmitters have carried the BBC across the airwaves, from the iconic Droitwich transmitting station in Worcestershire to Westiglen and Birkhead in Scotland. Although the Longwave signal is fading into history this morning, the memories and the connection it created will endure forever. We shall miss your warmth and crackle. Well, that's it from me. I'm Ryan Olbers here at Broadcasting House. If you have been, thanks for listening. Have a safe, quiet and peaceful night. Good night. Evil one.
You are listening to 198 kilohertz Longwave. BBC Radio 4 is no longer available on this frequency. However, you can find Radio 4 many other ways. You can find BBC Radio 4 online via BBC Sounds. Radio 4 is available on DAB digital radio and through your digital television, including Freely. Radio 4 is also available via FM radio on 92 to 95 megahertz and 103 to 105 megahertz. Plus, you can listen via your smart speaker. Just say, play Radio 4. Information on how to listen can be found on the BBC website at bbc.co.uk/reception. You are listening to 198 kilohertz Longwave. BBC Radio 4 is no longer available on this frequency. However, you can find Radio 4 many other ways. You can find BBC Radio 4 online via BBC Sounds. Radio 4 is available on DAB digital radio and through your digital television, including Freely. Radio 4 is also available via FM radio on 92 to 95 megahertz and 103 to 105 megahertz. Plus, you can listen via your smart speaker. Just say, play Radio 4. Information on how to listen can be found on the BBC website at bbc.co.uk/reception. You are listening to 198 kilohertz Longwave. BBC Radio 4 is no longer available on this frequency. However, you can find Radio 4 many other ways. You can find BBC Radio 4 online via BBC Sounds. Radio 4 is available on DAB digital radio and through your digital television.